It's hard to believe we're already in weeks 5 and 6 of the Pantry Challenge. We've been participating in the Three Rivers Homestead Pantry Challenge. I'll link that below if you're not familiar with it. But the way I plan on approaching weeks 5 and 6 is in a healthier way. And how we're going to do that is today we're going to meal prep. We're going to prep up our proteins, some roasted veggies. I'm going to make some quinoa. I'm going to chop up some veggies. I'm going to make maybe some dressings, and I'm going to make a nice asparagus soup. So I started off, I went through the freezer, and for the proteins this week I have, I have a deer tenderloin burger with bacon, and these are real lean. I have some chicken strips, and I already have some chicken thighs in the crock pot, and I have some asparagus that I chopped up from last summer. And I have some broth. It was the last one in the freezer, so that's an accomplishment. Let's go ahead and get all this stuff prepped up today. And later in the week, I'll show you how I make meals out of the different ingredients that we've prepared. But tonight, I believe we're going to put the tenderloin on the grill and have that asparagus soup. We are finally using up the absolute last of the fresh onions and celery. I even used the sprouts and the onion off of this pitiful little thing. I have the chopped up veggies for the soup. I'm going to saute them in some oil. I seasoned with some garlic powder, salt and pepper. I added the frozen asparagus, some chicken broth, a little bit of milk, and we just let this simmer for a few hours until everything got really tender. Then I came in with the immersion blender and just got everything real smooth. Now we're going to roast up some vegetables. I have this is a candy roaster winter squash, just a little olive oil, salt and pepper on a sheet pan in the oven at 350 degrees. I also roasted up some carrots, some pitiful little Brussels sprouts that were still in the fridge. And next I'm going to take some of the ground venison, and I sauteed it up, and I'm going to remove it from the pan and place it in the fridge as well to use later. And I'm going to saute some more onions and soak up all these goodies and flavors, and that way I didn't even have to dirty another pan. Let's get started on the rice. I have some tallow. We're going to toast up the spices. That's some onion powder, and I'm going to use some turmeric. You could use olive oil or butter, that would be just fine. I have my rice already rinsed and it's draining, and we're going to add the rice into the oil, and we're going to toast the rice. This is not cooked rice, this is just rinsed rice. We're going to move it around in the oil, get it coated real good, and let it toast. Be careful not to let it burn. And then we're going to add our broth. It's going to get a nice nutty flavor by toasting it this way. Then I'm going to add in the broth. You could use water as well, and you just cook it like you would rice any other time. It turns out so fluffy and flavorful. And I also cooked some quinoa. According to the directions, I used broth in it as well, but you could use water too. And I grilled the remaining proteins. I grilled this tenderloin, had some venison burger, and the chicken tenders. I grilled all that while I had the grill hot, and I had the chicken thighs that were in the crock pot. I took them off of the bone, and I had all of that protein in the fridge ready to just throw together different types of meals throughout the week. It came in really handy, and it did help us stay on track and eat pretty healthy. This night we had the tenderloin with some roasted carrots, a few roasted Brussels sprouts, and the asparagus soup topped with some Parmesan cheese. This night I made a salad. I used quinoa, some kale from the garden, some of the roasted veggies, the grilled chicken. I had some artichoke hearts. I put some feta cheese on it, some pepitas, little pumpkin seeds, lemon zest, and a nice light vinaigrette dressing that I made. And it was delicious. And we also had some homemade sourdough crackers. I've been trying to eat a lot of bone broth for all of its healthy properties. So here is a soup with just some of the veggies that I had left and some of the chicken thighs that were in the fridge. I had some frozen kale. I think I put some turmeric, cayenne pepper, and I just cooked this up very lightly. I didn't cook these vegetables down much at all. I added some cabbage, and that was the last of the cabbage, I think. Oh, and some chickpeas. And I did buy some lettuce that week because, like I said, we are almost out of anything fresh. I'm still doing good with some cheese. This is the last of that chicken that I prepared that week. And I made some more enchiladas. These were not as good as the enchiladas I made in the last video. They were very good, but if you like an enchilada, you need to go check out that last video. It was delicious. And this was pretty darn good too, and it was quick and easy. I made a homemade ranch dressing earlier in the week, and I had a little bit of sour cream left, but not enough for the meal, so I thickened up that ranch dressing with the sour cream, and it was delicious. I've been starting my ginger for this year's garden, and that inspired me to use ginger for this night's meal. I will have a video coming up where I can show you how to start ginger and your sweet potato slips if you would like to grow that in your garden this year. So keep an eye out for that. I'll put that link up as soon as that's available. So I've done some ground beef, sauteed the ginger, added in some garlic, added in some soy sauce, and a little bit of honey, and finished sauteing that ground beef in that. Then I pulled the ground beef from the sauce and I turned the heat up and I thickened up the liquid that was in the pan to make a nice little, sort of an Asian sauce, sort of. Then I sauteed some onions that I found while I was digging through the freezer to come up with some proteins for this meal. And I'd forgot I had them in there. So I had some frozen onions, and they are super sweet. So I sauteed them and I cut up some sweet potato and added the quinoa. And it was a nice little Asian-ish meal for that night. Okay, switching gears. Local gourmet chocolate shop is getting ready for Valentine's Day, so they got all their sweet strawberries in, and they took their seconds, the ones that weren't quite good enough for their candies, and they sold them super cheap. So I grabbed up some and I whipped up a quick batch of jelly. I didn't have any low sugar Sure Gel, so I had to do the full sugar, and it's really good, and it made nice use of those strawberries. And I also had some apple butter going. I had some apples that were going bad fast that I just hadn't gotten around to do anything with, so I had a batch of that apple butter going in a crock pot. It is nowhere near like my grandma's apple butter, but it'll do in a pinch. It felt really good to get some things preserved and put back on the pantry shelves. And this 6 weeks actually concludes my goal for the pantry challenge. I will probably continue it in some way for the next couple weeks, but I did reach my goal. Next week I will start doing a monthly grocery shopping instead of weekly like I had been for the last 30 some years of my life. So I'm looking forward to that. I will probably do a video and show you how that went for me, and I'm sure it will be a learning experience, and I'm sure I'll have an adjustment period before I get it nailed down. But I would like for y'all to come along with me and see how that goes. I thank y'all for hanging out with me for this pantry challenge. In the next video, I'll go over some of the things I learned, some areas where I saw that I fell short. But thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.